even see it?
No, I don't think you can.
Welcome. Hi, we're back at it again here with our first official long video. It's gonna be going over our first semester of medical school during COVID. Worldwide pandemic.
Yeah, it was an experience. I think a lot different than anyone was really expecting.
Yeah. So what's worse than med school?
Med school during COVID.
Yeah. So that's no joke there. So we're gonna run through our a whole course load here. What we did to prepare coming into medical school, how to help with that. And so I guess we'll just hop right into it.
Yeah. I think to start off with just some advice, some things we learned right away that we didn't think were important, such as where to pick for living.
So when you're coming into medical school, obviously if you're lucky you won't have to move, but most of us will have to move. And the big thing is picking out where you live. You want to be very, very particular and understanding and knowing yourself as to where you want to live and who you want to live with.
Yeah. So I know that's just basic a basic tip that you want to consider when you're going to medical school, but it's even more important during COVID because you got to keep in mind, say you want to live by yourself, you're not going to be having a whole lot of human interaction. COVID really
dampens the human interaction. Zoom only does so much.
Yeah, Zoom really doesn't do it for me, but
it doesn't do it like it used to.
It doesn't do it like it used to. But yeah, you got to keep in mind if you're going to be by yourself, in your own place, it's nice to have your own space and whatnot, but also you're not going to see a whole lot of people, so it's important to get involved with other people. That's why I personally picked to live with 2 other roommates in an apartment. And
they're not me, unfortunately. It's crazy.
we had to separate for the first time outside the womb.
It's crazy. So. Finally left the womb behind. Cut the cord.
Cut the cord finally. But from my experience, living with roommates has been so much fun. First semester was really a lot of fun. Didn't get to meet a whole lot of people in the class, so just having 2 other roommates that are also in the medical school, just talking, hanging out, just that daily interaction. Even if it was just a little thing of seeing each other during meals and whatnot, it still made a difference. But
yeah. So I actually live alone. So this is my apartment here. But I live alone, and I 10 out of 10 would not recommend. Just because I know for me I like seeing people and having someone to talk to. And, I like my own time, but I talk a lot, as most people know. And so I could either sit there and talk to myself or hopefully talk to somebody. But it's also crazy expensive living by yourself. So you gotta take into account it's one thing I was deciding on when I decided where I want to live is we had a bad roommate situation before, and so I was I don't want to have to deal with a really bad roommate while I'm struggling in medical school. And then I found out medical school is fun. I live alone, so I don't have any roommates, so it's a different kind of struggle. So just being very certain and maybe reach out if you don't want to live with someone you don't have to, but there's that cost and benefit, I guess. Hopefully COVID isn't a thing for anyone who's next year coming in, or won't be as prevalent for restrictions, so you can meet more of the people. Yeah. But honestly, meeting people in the class, it's been mostly through passing, and I've made some pretty good friends throughout it. I'm very, very thankful for, so I just got lucky on it. But you gotta be extra social. You gotta try, and during COVID, being extra social, what even is that? Checking out more Zoom meetings. What?
It's we're gonna get together. Oh, where are we gonna meet? On Zoom, of course.
It's crazy. Oh, happy hours hit different. Just so you know.
A Zoom happy hour is just you with your camera on drinking a beer.
Yeah, which honestly I do anyway, but through Snapchat.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's about it for advice on living. Definitely find a friend in some capacity that you could. Just keeps you honest with studying. It's very important.
Someone to hold you accountable. I have him hold me accountable. We'll go we'll work out, we'll do all that stuff. But he holds me accountable. Make sure hey, I'm doing my stuff even when I'm not feeling like it. So that's huge. The social aspect of it. Also, coming to medical school, know what your priorities are. That's a big thing, and especially we'll do a video on relationships, so we'll save it for then. But be very, very aware of what your priorities are, how to handle your emotions, and how to process your emotions, because emotional intelligence is key to being successful.
Knowing how to deal with people and knowing yourself best, what works best for you. And it's a little thing that you could think I can maybe get by it, but during COVID, you're by yourself a lot, and there's really no other distractions. So it's definitely emotional intelligence is very important.
Yeah. So you'll get to know yourself a lot through med school. Keep trying new things, but enough about the general advice. Let's hop right into our classes then. So
first class, hold on.
So yeah, as he's right down on the board here, but our class load went histology, human anatomy, SMP, ECM, and FCT, and we'll dive further into them. So the first class on the list, what do you want to go through?
Written terribly, but It's like sideways.
I know. It's like, the handwriting's atrocious, but
It's
fine.
terrible. It's terrible.
It's amazing. It's
Surgeon
amazing.
hands, I swear.
Get the doctor's handwriting ready.
So, histology.
Histology.
We'll jump right into it.
What is histology? Do we even know?
Basically, looking at a slide and it's something it's either black and white, red, or pink.
Yeah, it's basically it's like this. Yeah, that's it.
It's histo.
It's histo. You look at slides and you figure out what it is, and if it's not that, then it's something else because of reasons.
Yeah,
that's literally.
And so our histo experience was just looking, because we didn't have in-person labs, was us looking at pictures of slides and just memorizing it.
It was just straight memorization. Like, our professor was amazing. She was so engaging. It was like unreal. Like, wonderful professor. But yeah, no, the class was just not like my cup of tea. Like, it was like fine. Like, I did amazing in it. So like,
yeah,
that was fine. But like, it was just not. It was not exciting to me.
No, it's literally you just memorize a bunch of pictures and you're like, okay, why am I doing this? You're like, oh, I mean, I guess I need to learn it at some point.
But like, I don't want to go into infectious disease or pathology. So like,
it happened. It
happened. You got to do it. Like,
on a scale of 1 to 10, like 10 being the hardest, 1 being like not even a class.
Not even a class. That's such a tough scale.
I'll give it a 4.
Yeah.
Just because you have to do flashcards.
I would give it a 4. You can go through like, it's one of those like classes like you shouldn't wait to study until last minute, but it's one of those classes where you could put it off until last minute as long as you just like cram through like the studying flashcards and all that. Like, Anki crazy.
Yeah, if you want to do 1,000 flashcards the night before a test, you could.
Yeah.
And you'll still do well. You'll still do fine on it.
Yeah.
It's just, It was a nice change of pace compared to the other.
The
classes.
most forgiving class, I will say. The hands down the most forgiving class, as opposed to our next one. So, the next one on the chart here, I actually don't know what you're gonna pick here. Let's
keep it a surprise.
Get a little bit of surprise. We'll just have my gorgeous face here.
All right, next
class
we're talking about
anatomy.
We're running it back with anatomy. What'd you think of anatomy?
Anatomy was actually probably one of the funner classes. I think it was probably the most fun out of all of them. Like, because we work, so in our program we work with like cadavers, so people donate their body to science, and we learn about the anatomical structures and their functions, relatively, through like the cadavers, and then we have like 2 parts of it. So one is the lab and one is the written, and the lab is identifying structures and all that, and the written is basically applying that knowledge to like clinical vignettes.
Which was actually really cool. So we had a little bit of exposure to anatomy in undergrad, which was we had a really good professor. We also our program was partnered up with the youth, so we also had to deal with cadavers then, and it was just nice to have that pre-exposure to the words and terminology, because it is like learning a new language. But it's also so much fun, like getting to do the cutting and like the holding, and just like
it really humbles you. It's very humbling.
That's the best way of putting it. It's very humbling, but it's also so exciting because you're learning so much. And I think lab was probably my favorite
lab is
experience.
so fun. Like, we, for some reason, I don't even know how this worked out, but they put us in the same group, which like, I mean, I feel bad for our group mates, but like,
bless up, we
had so much fun.
They had double the trouble, and they still loved us nonetheless. So.
Yeah, true. But like, one of the big thing for anatomy is like, if you don't have any background in it, you need to spend some extra time just to get the verbiage down. It's not very easy to come like just right away. If you get it, that's crazy. But like, we came with like heavy backgrounds in it, so like, it kind of just flowed naturally because we've seen it before. Yeah. But it's very, very humbling. Be very, very respectful. That's the biggest thing here. It's a privilege and it's an honor to work with these people. And they have been so gracious. So be like very thankful there.
Yeah, that's enough about lab. But the lecture portion is really cool. Getting to tie in some clinical findings, and like say there's something happens in an emergency situation, you're like, oh, this vessel's leaking, and you trace up, okay, where should we like snip or clip?
Yeah, where were they clipped as like you just have to know like their origins, or where like the vessel's coming from, or like what nerve affects this, what would be the impact of like that nerve being like disabled.
And I feel like that was the first time I know, because we didn't really get a welcome to medical school kind of a thing.
You really don't.
You really don't. And I think that was the first time like, hey, this is actually like medicine. Like we're actually learning some things. Whether like, I know it's just through like a case example, but it just feels like there's a connection there. That's
and like the biggest difference we noticed, because we came right out of undergrad, so we just had like anatomy and all that stuff, is that like that clinical aspect, it makes you feel like you're actually, okay, I'm actually learning something for medicine. I'm not just learning it like another college course, like, oh, I need to know this just because reasons. Like, you know, it's because we're going to need this later on.
You're going to use this later
and
on.
like, honestly, in this next semester, like, we've used like anatomy so much. Like, you need to like have that backbone, like work hard on it. It'll stick around. Like, if you don't, like, not everyone loves anatomy, but it's the most useful class of first semester.
Oh, 100%. How would you rate it? 1 to 10,
on like scale of hard.
Hard.
I love the class.
Yeah.
I would give it a hard of a solid 8. So you need to put your time in.
I'd say 7 or 8 as well. It definitely takes a lot of time, but it's so rewarding.
Yeah, and it depends on your strengths though. So like our ratings will depend completely on strengths. Like our strengths were anatomy. I think rating objectively, like for everyone, I'd say like most people I talk to would be like an 8. Yeah, like an 8, personally, like a 6.
Yeah,
for difficulty.
It was hard. I think the hardest part was the nerves.
The nerves.
When we got to the brain and the nerves and the branchings and everything. It just
mine was the vasculature. It always got me. You mix one up, you mix the whole thing up. Yeah. Like, landmarks, I tell you, landmarks.
Always remember the landmarks.
Yeah. When in doubt, landmarks.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So we got the next one here. I have a feeling it's going to be one of my. Actually, the other 3 classes weren't that bad. No, there's one on here that like it's going to take the cake for my least favorite class.
We're jumping right into that one. So that is SMP, which is biochem, our version of biochem and genetics, tossed together. 2 favorite subjects, right?
Oh my god, hands on worst experience of my life. Like, welcome to med school +1. We had like, it was so much lecture in such a short amount of time. It was ridiculous. Yeah. You'd have like what? How many lectures have we? Like 6 lectures a week, right? But it's like very very compact lectures. Mm-hmm. So like they try to like cram it as fast as they can into like a 1-hour segment. But it's like the amount of material we learned in the first half semester covered everything I learned in undergrad. It was so much.
It was the analogy of drinking through a fire hydrant.
It was literally the fire hydrant.
It literally was. It is just. It's like, oh, we're learning about some random pathway. We're learning about like the Krebs cycle and whatnot. And then you jump in straight into something completely unrelated. You're like, oh my gosh, they're gonna be tested on these together. Like
the one thing I did not like about the class structure, and that's just like being nitpicky here, is that we would learn about metabolism one day, and then the next day we learn about something completely unrelated. Like, all right, so give me an example here. Oh, population genetics the next day, and it'd be like, wait, what? How does this tie into population genetics? And they'd be like, reasons you're being tested.
It's just like random. The tests would just be like, you'd have one question in one section about like metabolism and whatnot, and then just some random one-off question the next time. Just completely unrelated.
Yeah. But the teachers were wonderful. Yeah. No harm on them. Gosh. Like, they're so knowledgeable and they really want you to succeed. So like, honestly, like hats off to them. I just know my background in biochem and genetics was lacking coming in, and boy oh boy did it show up.
Yeah, right away. I think I definitely put the most time.
Oh yeah. S&P on a scale of 1 to 10, I put it as like a 9.5 to a 10 because I spent so much time, like we both did, just studying S&P because like I knew it'd be a weakness, and it was, and eventually like at the end when it started clicking, it was amazing, but it was a grind to get to that point.
Just to get there. Oh gosh, yeah, I totally can attest to that. It was just it happened. I feel like it was a different lifetime going through that. Yeah. But once you learn it, like you feel so much better afterwards. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it'll come back up later on in life. Hopefully I remember it then. Probably won't.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be useful for STEP, which is pass-fail, but...
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I agree with you. 9.5 out there.
Yeah, 9.5. Honestly, just put in the work for it. Like, honestly, hopefully you come with a good background. Take biochem in undergrad, or take genetics or something.
Do yourself a favor. Take biochem in undergrad if you can.
Yeah, and like, don't just like memorize it, like try to retain it because it comes back tenfold. Because imagine the information you have to learn in undergrad, it's straight surface level, and now you need to know like every individual like enzyme, everything. It's just so much.
It's a lot. Yeah. Just having that, even if like say in undergrad, say you like just you have your first pass through, like that is you're gonna be well above like coming in just completely blind, learning anatomy on top of it, and then you're like, okay, S&P does not stop. Like, if you're not doing S&P every single day, you're really like, I hope you have a master's in S&P. Like genetics and biochem, you were born in that. Like,
you were born in the dog. But help yourself out first semester. Like, make sure don't make sure you have a strength in the course, but like it really helps. Like having that anatomy background, like it was so helpful to like I'd be able to spend all that time at S&P and then be like, okay, cool, I can only spend like a day or so on like anatomy for the exam. Like that's fine. But like S&P was just so much. So like that was it for that. But moving on to our next classes. So our other 2 classes.
Yeah, I feel like these are actually like one of the like
they're kind of hard to, the acronyms, I mean, here we go.
Yeah.
Essentials of Clinical Medicine. This is just basically how to be a doctor 101.
Yeah, it's doctoring class.
Like,
the other two are just our doctoring classes.
Yeah,
basically.
which is actually really cool. It's like how to give, how to do a physical exam, how to take a history, just basically first visit with a patient, how to go about it, how to be respectful, and just kind of go through like you feel like a doctor. That's where you're really using your stethoscope and your white coat. Should they give it to you?
Yeah,
that's all.
So backstory: we got our white coats crazy late because they wanted to do a ceremony, and we ended up not having it because of COVID. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we'll talk about that like later.
That's another
thing. But like, yeah, so it's like the doctoring class. You basically like everything you came to med school to do, you learn how to do, and like it feels awkward right away, but it's actually so much fun. And like the groups are amazing. Like I love my ECM group so much. Like Fibers for life here.
Yeah, it's definitely like a great experience overall, and just like the environment they build, like. You can say something, could be completely wrong, and it's just a supportive environment where you feel like, okay, it's okay to share ideas, do something wrong, but then learn why and kind of like correct it because, you know, it's low stakes. Like, it's just an intro to, like, they all get, like, it's an intro to everything, but I think all in all, it was one of the funnest classes. Like, definitely, like, one of the highlights. And we actually had the opportunity, we didn't get to deal with any patients or anything, but we had to deal with other classmates, so it was another opportunity to connect, build those relationships, and just kind of, like, feel like a doctor.
Yeah, it like makes you feel like a doctor, and you finally understand like when you do physical why they're doing these things, what you're actually listening for, and like how to go about these different maneuvers. So that's basically ECM in a nutshell. Like,
I didn't think I don't even know how to rate it on like a scale of difficulty. It's not
scale of difficulty is like it's a scale of difficulty to understanding competency to become a physician, basically. So like it'll always be difficult because ECM doesn't just stop after first semester. Like it keeps going. So we're doing it currently our second semester too. So. First semester, I would give it like learning how to do physical and stuff like that.
It wasn't too bad. I give like a 3. Like
a 3. It was like one of our more relaxed classes. You didn't have to really do prep work for it unless you really needed to like practice. But like,
they built in enough practice.
Yeah, they built in enough practice time. So I give it like a 3 or a 2.
3, yeah. And then our last one.
What was the last?
Oh my gosh.
So last one. This is
actually okay.
It's a fun class, but like part of me feels like it could be tied into ECM, and that's just me.
It really, 100%. So it's called FCT. Oh my gosh, my handwriting has gotten terrible.
It's getting honestly.
You
ready,
I didn't
doctor?
Just start scribbling stuff.
Like,
so FCT is the Foundations of Clinical Thinking, where we basically just go throughout like ethical dilemmas that doctors might face, you might face as a physician, and just kind of like go through the ins and outs of some of the more like formal side.
More the paperwork side of it. Yeah. And they also harp on the differential diagnosis.
Oh yeah.
Which is
so
huge.
fun.
They're fun, but like it's huge because like if you didn't scribe, like we worked as CNAs before this,
yeah.
no business. We had no business scribing or anything, so we were just like, wow, like this is kind of cool. So like we were set behind in that aspect of it. So that was like the hard part about it, is getting used to like this long format of how to figure things, how to like fill things out, and like I feel like it's tied into ECM because you do the physical exam and then on like FCT you'd write your like findings from the physical exam. So that's kind of cool, like ties them together. So I think they could just be one course, but
seriously, like, and just like learning different diagnoses. Like you come in and you're like, okay, if it's not an ulcer, like what do they got? They're bleeding out, right? But you kind of like slowly build up confidence, like, okay, like what do you think it could be? And like just building up the confidence to say like, okay, it could be this, and then explaining why. Like there's technically there's no wrong answer, but I mean there is.
Yeah, there is.
But it's just a learning process of getting to that right answer.
Oh, I also like that like it ties in your other classes. So like you'll have to know your anatomy. You'll have to know your physical exam, like what you're like seeing in each area. So you need to know your anatomy for the physical exam, and you also need to like know what you're looking for in a physical exam in order to like clear off things off your diagnosis list. So it's actually really, really cool in that aspect. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Do not like stress about knowing the names of all these diseases. Like people will be like throwing disease names left and right, and you're just like, well, hang on. We have like the internet for a reason. You don't need to know it all. Like, okay, the symptoms of this. What could it be?
Yeah, exactly. And then just like, if you don't know something, feel free to ask. Like all the facilitators were super cool. And also, you have the internet. Go look it up. Go Google it, and then just do more research on it. So then next time when that does present again, you'll know what you're looking for and possibly what it could be. So
and so that's our classes. I would rate FCT difficulty just because like coming in, I give it a 5. Not having a good job with like the background.
Okay, I guess the formatting. Yeah, I will say. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Like that's the only because differential diagnosis is difficult, but like it applies to other classes. So like if you work well in those other classes, like it should help. It's just the formatting. Like the paperwork is never fun, but you gotta
100%. Yeah, I'll give it. I'm gonna give it a 4. I'll give it a 4. You gotta go a little bit lower.
So we went over the classes, but our overall, like, what changed in our classes because of COVID specifically, in anatomy, we had, like, less people in a room, so we'd have 2 sections. So instead of doing a 4-hour dissection, we had 2-hour dissections twice a week.
Yeah, twice a week.
So we go one time, 8 to 10:30.
Yeah,
8 to 10:30, and then we go on Tuesdays, and then Thursdays we go what was it? 10:30 to 12:30. Sorry.
It was sometimes. It was just kind of like splitting groups. And so like there was just a lot more challenges, like not having enough people, not having a certain amount of people in a set amount, like in an area, and just kind of like
the splitting up.
It was like everything was split up, and we missed out on a lot of opportunities in person just because of the nature of what it was.
So we started dissection, and then you would leave, and the other group would like finish it, and so it's like kind of a trade-off, which is like cool in theory, but only cool after you learn like the original anatomy. So like say the other group came in first, and we come in after, we had to learn everything they did, instead of like doing it ourselves and just going through the whole process, which is more streamlined.
Yeah, and hopefully they actually
did it.
They actually did the dissection.
So you're putting a lot of faith in the group before you.
Yeah, so like say they have an off day or something, or like
people are sick, or people get COVID. Like,
people are just dropping in and out. You're like, okay, we have to do both dissections now, like half the time. I think that was the biggest struggle of lab.
And our school did a great job though, with like PPE and all of that, like making sure everyone was safe. Like eventually people ended up only getting COVID from like roommates and stuff like that, which is another thing. Like when you like the biggest change for COVID is like when you have a roommate or anything like that, you need to be very, very certain as to like who you're hanging out with. Aside from, say they have a significant other or something, you're taking into account everyone they hang out with, and the person they hang out with their significant other, and everyone their significant other hangs out with. So like that COVID risk, like there's people in our class who got COVID because of like their roommate had a significant other who got COVID and then brought it back.
It's like thinking, okay, who you gonna invite to the barbecue, and you gotta like trim down that list even further, and you're like, okay, this is getting a little bit dicey.
Yeah, it gets a little dicey, because like you basically live in a vacuum. So like I live by myself, I live in a vacuum. My exposure is to him, and his is 2 roommates.
Mine is my 2 roommates. So it's kind of like it's a weird like telephone game. Hopefully everyone's being safe and whatnot. So.
Yeah, and so like it's best to be safe as possible and like social distance as much as possible. But yeah, the other side note, COVID restrictions is we did not get our white coat ceremony, which we alluded to. Yeah. And so
we could. I feel like we could talk about that another time. Just kind of like our journey into it and like how everything. Actually, no, let's do it now.
Yeah, why don't we just talk about it now briefly?
So we didn't get a undergrad graduation.
So we graduated this past spring. A little backstory.
Didn't get undergrad graduation. We're like, okay, like it happens, right? And so we're coming in. We're like, okay, we're supposed to get this white coat ceremony. Hopefully things open up.
Yeah, it's like a rite of passage kind of deal. You're like, okay, no college graduation, but that's okay because white coat ceremony is supposed to be like amazing. Like I'll feel like, okay, I accomplished something.
Yeah, and so we're going in. We're like, okay, like things will maybe open up. We were wrong. Things got worse, as everyone knows. Yeah. And so they're like, yeah, we're gonna push this till like midway through our 2nd to 3rd year. And we're like, it was. I mean, I get why, but it's still like another thing of okay, like we don't get anything in person. We didn't get any kind of celebration. Like every kind of celebration was tough. Like I understand why. It just I can't really complain about it. But it's still kind of
like blessed to be in this scenario. And people have lost so much more due to COVID. So just gonna preface that here, not gonna sound pretentious or anything like that. But it did take like an emotional hit because like you never have that like okay we did it like we like a celebration like okay we made it through college like first children of our parents like in our family to like go to college and graduate. First people in our entire family like lineage to become doctors.
And it was just like for me it wasn't like not
or go to medical school. We're not doctors yet. We're students. Can't jump ahead of myself.
So like I think for both of us like it wasn't really a celebration mostly for us. It was more for our families and how much they've like given to us and just kind of like give them that time to like celebrate and relish that we made it here together. And we never really got that, which I mean, hopefully there's always time for celebrations and whatnot.
And there's like, I think that's the one thing is like keep perspective, like people like lost loved ones and like people didn't get to celebrate weddings, people didn't do this, but like there's honestly that side of it, and that's one of the saddest things about COVID. And that's like the hardest part, like the emotional strain that COVID caused is like ridiculous. And then tying into that, like the stress of studying and then having to go into isolation and not being able to see your family for certain like things or certain events, like it like pulls on you and like it'll break the strongest of people. So like you have to be that's where we come to emotional intelligence. You need to be very, very aware of your emotions and how you're acting. You can't just like put your nose to the ground on every single day.
You gotta know also when to reach out to someone and just talk to anyone. Like I feel like that was. It's one of the things we all joked about earlier, like, oh, like, ha ha ha, like, whatever, like, Zoom, like, WebMD, right, ha ha, and we're all going through it, but the workload's still the same.
Yeah.
It's just less interaction. You have little distractions from it, like, oh, what are you going to do to go, distract yourself? Okay, go to gym. Well, gyms are closed. Okay, what are we going to do? Run outside? Okay, like, you're risking, exposure.
Yeah.
It's like this constant paranoia of, I can't afford to be sick, I have all this stuff to do, and it just kind of builds on, I can't talk to anyone really, unless,
mental health,
this was a semester of mental
health.
Is
a semester of mental health.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to think that, like, okay, they can't talk about it, that, like, no, like, we're, like, 6'3", 6'2" people here, like, big old men, like, I struggled. There were tough times in it, so, like, we can talk a video on that, like, another time if you guys want, but, like, just, like, taking care of yourself first semester, and, like, it gets a lot better after first semester, which is, honestly, I'm seeing, like, the benefits of all, like, the study habits I figured out, but, like, and, like, figuring out your study habits is huge first semester.
Everyone will say that. Like, your whatever study habits you had in undergrad, I mean, good for you if they still work.
If you studied.
I wiped the slate clean with that. Started something completely new. Learning curve was a little steep with it, using Anki and whatnot. But
trying to try the gambit of everything, and then eventually found, like, what works for us.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just kind of building off that. But yeah, so that was our first semester in med school during COVID.
Yeah.
If you guys have any questions, Lily, feel free to reach out.
Throw some comments.
Yeah, toss a few comments in there.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Also, comment if you can.
Oh, this is our new merch. So we got merch for our medical school. Women in medicine, actually.
Yeah, women in medicine. Amazing.
Yeah.
So let us know if you like what is that?
The Patagonia. So these are Patagonias embroidered with our med school. So, like,
what color is that?
This is a charcoal gray or something like
steel gray. Okay, so he's wearing the steel gray, and I got the jet black or something.
Yeah.
Let us know which one you like better.
Yeah, honestly, I mean.
All right.
It's kind of silent.
It's nice. All right, until next time, we'll catch you later.
All right.